says that Congress may make no law of any sort respecting the abridgment of freedom of the press or of expression or of free assembly. And those of us who say that that amendment means exactly what it says and nothing else, that it's written so as, so to speak, no wiggle room exists, are known as the First Amendment absolutists. It only answers half the question that faces us, of course, because it usually isn't Congress or the state that tries to abridge free expression or free speech. Many a journalist hopes to be martyred one day by an attempt to censor him by the authorities. They live for this moment. There are even singers, like the Dixie Chicks, who think they can claim martyrdom of this kind. Actually, in the present situation, the main threat to free expression comes from public opinion. So for a Democrat, someone who believes in popular sovereignty, it's a very great problem that public pressure, the pressure of the masses, if you like, is the one that you most likely have to face. And it's also much the hardest to resist, because you'll be accused of being an elitist. You can even be accused of being a racist if you simply say, no, I'm sorry, I reserve the right to criticize anything I like, and in particular, if you reserve the right, insist upon the right to criticize faith or religion. At that point, you may find yourself in some difficulty, and your editor will not tell you, I've been under pressure from the FBI to shut you up. He'll tell you, I've been under pressure from the community.
But does that amendment
And to me, part of growing up is to say the community can go to hell, as far as that's concerned. I don't care about the community. I don't care about the crowd. I don't care about public opinion.
But that amendment must clash with the other, which is about freedom of religion, too.
No, it's the same amendment. The reason why the First Amendment is so important is that the Establishment Clause, as it's called, forbids the US government to take any side in a religious dispute or to allow any privilege for any faith or any faith-based group or any church. Is the same amendment that says there can be no abridgment of the freedom of expression. So it's as tightly written as any possible amendment could be. It's easy to look up. I recommend that you will do it.
Who claimed the right to say what he believed, regardless of the amount of offence it was given, and he was denied that freedom to offend. 3 years in jail, is that right, Christopher? Do you think that's fair?
They're appealing to make it 10.
Yeah.
3 years from now.
Is that good?
It's a scandal. It's a scandal in itself. And as it happens by its timing, because it happened almost the same week as the Danish controversy, it allowed Muslim demagogues to say, aha, you see, the West doesn't really believe in free speech. And I would take that as a criticism of Western governments, not of myself, because I defend Irving too, and for several years have been doing so. Not just for his right to do this as a matter of free speech, but actually as a matter of free inquiry. I'll say it now and I'll take my chances, but I've read all of David Irving's books on the Third Reich, and I don't think anyone who hasn't read them is educated in the argument. Even at that trial in London with Deborah Lipstadt, the woman you mean, John Keegan, many other eminent historians came into court that said what I've said repeatedly in print. He is a very major contributor to the subject. He's the man who showed the Goebbels diaries, sorry, the Hitler diaries were a fraud and the Goebbels diaries were genuine, when Hugh Trevor Roper, our doyen of historians, fell for it the wrong way. I think he has the right to advance his claims, as well as the right to express his own opinion. It's actually all you need about the censorship mentality. Those who want to be offended will always find something. There's no way of forestalling that. And just as one cannot tolerate being censored oneself, one can say with absolute confidence that if one was in favor of censorship, in principle, platonically, say we wish it could be done, decency could be protected, obscenity could be avoided, offense could be, who's going to get the job? Do you know anyone? There will never be a human being born who's good enough for that job. No man is good enough to be another man's master in that way. There cannot be a censor or censorship that does not degenerate into absurdity and corruption, and there never has been, and there never will be, and all the excuses for it would be that it protects superstition and religious fanaticism.
It should have been. But the fact still is, the theatre in turn will ask themselves whether it's worth it. There's no satisfaction, you know, in being run over if you know that the driver who's run you over is going to go to jail. It's not going to do you very much good after you've been arrested.
Manchester last we found the energy to arrest and charge someone who stood outside the Catholic Evidence Guild office there, holding up a copy of my book on Mother Teresa. They were very swift to punish him. You can't do that. Who knows what will happen if we let you do it. But those who actually use and threaten violence are let off, let go. Get used to it, or don't get used to it. Get used to it and you'll live under it. Resist it now while it can still be opposed. Because there's a police state coming that says that we are there to protect religion and all religions. That, and it'll all be done in the name of niceness. It'll all be benign. Can you bear it?
The story of the Sikh play is even more confounding because they wanted to commission a play from a major ethnic community within the city and had opened the doors to consultation with them, invited them in, invited them to rehearsals, invited them to contribute, all by way of being the generous, liberal, enlightened theatre world, and it had spiked their attempts. So concessions don't win the day, perhaps.
Maybe not. Joseph Priestley, and he'll give you an example. Joseph Priestley, the man who discovered oxygen, had his laboratory in Birmingham, and while he was doing his great scientific experiment, he also announced that he didn't believe in divine revelation at all. He didn't believe in the monarchy, that he was effectively Unitarian, and as you know, the Unitarian belief is that there's one God maximum, and one God at most, if that. And a mob formed. It was called the Church and King mob. It did a lot of work in those days for the Hanoverian usurpers and their friends. They smashed up his laboratory. They destroyed the only real scientific laboratory in Britain. They were so appalled that there was this scientist going on and making these profane remarks. He had to move to Philadelphia. Well, good for them. They got what they Philadelphia got Joseph Priestley. Good for them.
Christopher
They
believes...
had every right to have their feelings hurt by something they didn't understand, hadn't read, didn't care about, and knew that they wouldn't be punished by the authorities for acts of vandalism and cruelty and intimidation. We want this back now. I thought we got over this. Now I have to face it all again. Arguments I'd forgotten having to have, and having to have again, with religious fascists. I'm ready to do it till I draw my last breath, but I'm appalled that anyone making excuses for it.
Well, we live in... you believe that there's a police state coming to defend religions of all kinds. Friendly police state, kind, benign. How is that going to play out? I mean, how is that going to play out in different communities? Are they all going to become theocracies, in which you cannot speak against the prevailing faith of the day, or indeed any other faith within multi-racial communities?
We don't really enjoy living in a planet full of Christopher Hitchenses, but the fact is we don't. And so all I'm saying is that we do need to take into account the fact that some things we say and do will have consequences. Now, which is not to say...
Taking into account, does that mean conceding or just saying, well, I'm taking it into account, but I'm still going to do it?
Well, there are perhaps ways of doing things differently. That short story could have been given a different title. The question of the play. Again, I haven't read or seen the play, so I don't know anything about it. I gather that one outraged Sikh leader said, we would have supported this play, but why did she have to set an act of incest or rape that takes place in a temple, and that they found offensive. Now, I'm not suggesting that the playwright's artistic integrity ought to be compromised on the altar of somebody else's intolerance, but I am saying that she in writing it, and the theatre in putting it up, ought perhaps to have borne in mind that maybe there was some effective diplomacy to be conducted before they actually went ahead with this.
All these acts of diplomacy before, as the play progressed, in order to nuance the relationship with the community which they cherished and which they wanted to see thrive. And it backfired because the word was out. The word is out. They're telling us about it. Let's go and protest.
The Regent's Park Massacre came to Salman at one point after the hideous threat of murder, suborning of murder for money offered by a theocratic leader of a foreign state. Just whirl it round your tongue a bit. The theocratic leader of a foreign state, in his own name, offers money for murder, someone for writing a novel. Pretty frontal attack for expression. declare your adherence to Islam again, maybe you'll stop trying to kill him. He actually did. They lied to him. Fucking flat out lied to him. These people have no concept of truth, no concept of honesty at all. When has anyone ever said, what's it like to be insulted as someone who thinks that civilization is a real thing? Why is it always interfaith? Why is it always interdenominational? Why can't we say that all of these cults are equal and equivalent glimpses of the untrue?
But what?